Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. And we have someone today that's going to help you learn a little something. In corporate America, if you are a person of color, you know how difficult it can be to move forward, to level up, to get that position that you've been dying for. You might feel like you're being edged out all the time by someone that does not look like you. Is that in fact something in your mind? Is it in your head? Or is there a reality? Is there some secret sauce to this pizza? How do you elevate yourself professionally? How do you go after knowing that it's possible to secure some of these top tier positions? You want to have goals and aspirations, and you don't want to be in a situation where, the reality could actually be you're not going to get it based on what you look like. Is that the reality, or is that a figment of our imagination? So I'm going to bring you someone today. He's on his first book, but it's not his first rodeo. He speaks on this topic often, and he is someone that has, I'd say, practiced what he has preached. So without further ado, Mr. Pierre, how are you?
How are you? How are you? Great to see you. Happy to be here.
Blessed to have you here. Super excited to get into your book. I want everybody to know. Can you see it? I got my copy. Okay.
Awesome.
Now I got to get it signed. I have to get it signed.
We'll figure out how to make that happen.
Yes, we have to make that happen. Let the people know a little bit about yourself, where you are from, a little bit about your background, and why did you write this book?
Sure. So I'm Errol Pierre. I am a lifelong New Yorker, born and raised. Ended up in healthcare accidentally. Stumbled upon my internship where I started working, and have been in healthcare space 20 years. I also teach. I'm a professor at 3 colleges in New York where I teach health economics. And then really after the pandemic was what really spurred my interest into writing the book. So I was in a 900 square foot apartment when the pandemic hit, March 2020, by myself, no family, no kids, really in my thoughts. So I was able to really take time to really think through where I came from. I started, my first job ever was in a warehouse of a beauty supply store. And then by the time I turned 35, I was the chief operating officer for a major insurance company, and really had the time during the pandemic while we were quarantining to really write down all of the lessons I've had, all of the recommendations, tips, tricks, gems that I've learned along the way. And that's really what inspired me to write the book. It was just crazy that when the pandemic hit, 1, COVID was disproportionately impacting people of color. And then 2, we were witnessing the murder of George Floyd. So I just felt it was very important now more than ever to put this book out there so that professionals of color know how to move up if they so choose.
I love that. COVID did produce a lot of books and babies.
Books and babies.
When you get time on your hands and you have the opportunity to really think about things, or canoodle with someone that's next to you, I guess that's what you do. So yeah, a lot of books and babies. What about your career gave you the passion to write about this? So I'm guessing there was some struggles to get to where you got to, and being able to acknowledge that and put that in writing. What were some of those situations that really came to light for you?
Yeah, I think the first one was the fact that I had immigrant parents. Both my parents were born in Haiti. They came to America in 1969, and they obviously came here to make a better life for their kids, me and my older brother. And what I learned from them as blue collar immigrant workers that were working a ton on my behalf was strong work ethic. Wake up early in the morning, come home super late, stay humble, keep your head down, get your work done, don't bother anybody. And that was a lesson that I saw from them. And also this really big focus on education. So a lot of focus on making sure that I get educated. Those were great lessons. And then I entered the corporate world leveraging those lessons, but those were lessons for the blue collar world, right? Work hard, keep your head down, stay humble, and over time, someone will just discover you and promote you. Those are totally the wrong lessons in corporate America, like in white collar jobs in those spaces. You actually have to look up and speak to executives and speak to the senior leaders in the company and raise your hand for tough projects and really showcase yourself and differentiate yourself. And those were lessons that I wasn't taught by my immigrant parents. So I knew going in, I started with a deficit and I had to learn those things over time. And what I wanted to do is say anyone else that's starting in the entry level world, I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made. So that was one of the big ones. Another one is thinking about your authentic self. So in the book, I talk about something called IDMs. And these are identity defining moments. And for me, it was like when I found out I was Black in America. And when I really found out I was Black in America was when I was arrested in college. That was such a traumatic experience for me. And it let me know, I'm like, wow, W.E.B. Du Bois calls it double consciousness. It's like, I know who I am. I was this educated African-American college student, but I have to contend with how the world perceives me. At the time, these cops perceived me to be, a drug dealer in the Bronx. And so you're enter the workforce and you know who you are, but you're contending with how people perceive you. You're now this Black entry-level employee, and how are people perceiving you turns into how they treat you. Do they give you raises, promotions, opportunities for advancement? And I struggled with that as well. And so I talk about that through the book, just so that other people don't struggle with it either.
Got it. Talk to me about the arrest. What happened?
Yeah, it's a crazy story. And I talk about it in the book. I was a senior in college. Well, let me back up. So I went to Fordham University undergrad, and on campus, I was a track scholar athlete. Off campus, this perception was I was a drug dealer selling drugs to the predominantly white students that went to Fordham. And so as soon as I stepped off campus, I was totally someone different based on how the world treated me. And so I would get stopped and frisked all the time. They check my ID, they find out I'm a Fordham student, and let me go. This one time when I was a senior in college, it was at night. They said I was fitting a description. These were police officers that were not in uniform, literally tackled me to the ground, had no idea who they were, flailed my arms because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if I was being robbed, jumped, beaten up, flailing my arms, trying to get back up. They threw cuffs on me, threw me into a car, and then literally charged me with resisting arrest. And so the craziness of this is you're minding your business. It's literally walking while Black. Police officers not in uniform tackle you. You do your natural response of, react and trying to get back up and push people off of you. And then you get dinged with resisting arrest. I was brought to jail. Luckily, they saw my information and everything like that. So like after a couple hours, I was let free, but I had to go for a court case. And the crazy thing about this is I had the opportunity to have my track coach write a letter of endorsing me as a person who's like of good character. I had a character witness who was a Fordham student that saw everything that happened. So I was able to bring a witness to the case. And I had parents that were able to afford $5,000 for the lawyer to come to the court case. So the case got dismissed. If you look at the stats, that I am few and far between. 96% of the time, Black and brown youth plead guilty to a lesser charge because they don't have the $5,000 for an attorney. And a lot of these folks end up arrested and they're in jail waiting for their court case. I was able to leave. So that definitely changed my life. And I do fight to make sure that other Black young men understand the ramifications of interacting with the law, even when they do nothing wrong, And you walk around with the stigma of knowing at any point in time you can fit a description and end up in that mousetrap.
So what eventually was your charge? What were you
charged?
charged?
It was a Class E felony, resisting arrest. It's crazy.
So you're someone that has done well. Currently, we can say you've done well in corporate America. looking back on that situation and the climate that we're in now, you might have young Black men early on in their career saying things like, it's these things aren't happening because I'm Black or brown. And other people will tell them, no, you're just not doing the right things, or you're not talking to the right people, or you're not asking for the big projects. When in fact, that could actually be the issue.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk to the fact that sometimes it actually is the issue. How do you continue to move forward? Because I'm also of the belief that even if the society that we're in is racist or the system is racist, there are ways around or through that.
Yeah.
So I want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there racism? 1,000%. Is the deck stacked against us in terms of the algorithms that search for resumes that don't have my name, Errol Pierre, but they're looking for other names like, more Caucasian, white sounding names? Absolutely. Is there bias in the workplace where the upper echelons of the company that are not diverse are promoting people that look like them? 1,000%. So am I saying this is easy? No. But what I am saying is don't have a defeatist mindset. And also, not everybody is racist. Not every company has stigma and bias. There are places where you can find people that will be different. And for me, that's what led me to mentorship and sponsorship. So if you're at a company and the company is not investing in you, is not seeing the true value of you, is not thinking that you can add value, that's the company you shouldn't be at. I was at a company where I found a mentor that looked at me and said, I can see bigger than you can, the things that you can get done. And I, latched onto it and took it. So sometimes we apply for roles for the title or for the income, not thinking about the person we're going to work for. The data shows 85% of the time you leave a company is because you had a bad boss. So we should be actually interviewing for jobs, thinking about the boss we're going to work for more than the title and the job. It's more so the culture of the company and the boss you're going to work for.
Yeah, through my career, I've learned that they're not just interviewing me. I'm also interviewing them.
1,000%. Yeah.
I'm also interviewing them to see if it's somewhere that I want to spend a significant portion of my life, my time, my day, my hours. Like that is important that we look at these opportunities as mutually beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. Example is this. You're at a current company and you see the writing on the wall. The promotions are happening. It's not diverse people. So you're like, I'm looking at who gets promoted. I'm looking who gets the better projects. I'm looking who gets the higher jobs, and it's not people of color. That's not a place where you think you can hitch your wagon to for the future. If you're interviewing for a new company, it's okay to ask, what is the company's diversity stance? What do they believe in? What's their values around equity and inclusion? Can you tell me the statistics of your most recent promotions? I would love to know them by gender and race, just so that you can be aware of. If you're going to work for a boss, you can ask them, what's their stance on diversity? How is it important to them? Do they have examples of how they've helped people of color rise to the ranks on their teams? Do they have any specific examples? Those are questions you should be asking. It's too late after you agree to join the company to then find out. You should know beforehand. And that's really the key.
I want to ask you about some of these chapters. Let's talk about reclaim your seat. Talk about that chapter.
Yeah, so this is really important. I think that it's very important that you know who you are and you bring your full self to the job, understanding that it's going to help you differentiate yourself and stick out. And for me, I was actually very nervous to show my true self. So an example would be if someone said, hey, how's your New Year's? I wouldn't tell them that in the Haitian culture, on New Year's Day, we eat a very symbolic pumpkin soup to celebrate our, independence. Haiti became a free country in 1804. And to celebrate, you eat this pumpkin soup. I wouldn't say that. I would actually lie and say, oh, I saw the ball drop on TV. because I was trying to fit in. I was trying to assimilate. I was trying to code switch. I didn't want to be different because I didn't want to stick out. I was trying to, be like everybody else. When you do that, you dim your light. You actually make yourself smaller to try to fit into a box that someone has of you. And what I challenge folks to do is say, no, be your full self. Explain what you do. Those are things that are going to differentiate yourself. My background, my arrest, my heritage, what I did growing up in the Bronx, all of that makes me a different person in the workplace, which means I bring different ideas, different thoughts, different perspectives, which is needed. And it differentiates myself from my peers. I don't want to be like everybody else. And so Reclaim Your Seat really speaks to knowing who you are, knowing the value you bring. And if sometimes you walk into the room and you're the only Black person, that's a good thing. Be that Black person and shine. Don't be quiet and stay quiet. Be that Black person and shine and speak your mind, say how you feel. If they don't like it, that's not the right place for you. But if they're smart, they'll take what you have and use it.
But you say reclaim your seat as if you had it in the first place. And I think part of not being your authentic self or being as transparent as we would like to be is the fact that even though you get hired, you still feel like you're fighting for that seat. So to say reclaim it, many people feel like really it's not theirs yet, even if they got hired, even if they got,
So this speaks to like
that.
when I became chief operating officer, the first thing that I was affected was with imposter syndrome. This is like the belief that you don't belong where you belong. You might make a mistake or you might get caught. Someone might ask you a question and you don't know the answer. And I had so much pressure on myself that I didn't belong in the role. Even worse was I a diversity hire? So maybe I wasn't even eligible for the role, but I got it because I'm Black. Like these were the negative thoughts that were in my head. I had to really challenge myself and say, I went through 16 interviews, 16 different people reviewed my skill sets, reviewed myself, looked at my experience. They did a background check. They did reference checks. There's no way that I got this job just for getting it. So when I say reclaim, you got the role. Don't have self-doubt creep in to make you believe that you're not supposed to be there. And don't for a second shrink yourself and not fully express your full self and deny, your full self from blossoming.
You said something earlier. You talked about code switching. Let's get into that. How, even though you're saying it's okay to be your authentic self, I had an interview with Ariva Martin. She has a degree from Harvard. She's incredibly smart. You see her on CNN, and she's on point all the time. But she said she truly believes in code switching. Give me your thoughts on that. And do you?
Yeah. So this is my thought on code switching. I joke that I have a PhD in making white people comfortable. And the reason why I say that is all of the jobs that I've gotten, all the promotions I've received, I had to have a bond with my boss that was going to hire me to get that job. So I had to build a rapport with them where they felt close enough to me to say, I trust them. There's a natural proclivity for people to trust the people that look like them and have the same background. They call it implicit bias. To overcome implicit bias, you have to sort of do something extra to overcome this sort of implicit mentality that I'm going to gravitate towards people that look like me. So did I code switch? 1,000%. What does that mean? That means, I was playing golf. I don't necessarily like golf. I was going out to different bars and, going to happy hours and talking to folks on topics I didn't want to talk about. I was watching shows I didn't want to watch because in the job, that was the show that they talked about. Did you see this show Friday? Oh, I have no idea what it is. So it's okay to match the culture of the company, but you don't want to compromise yourself. If you code switch to the point where you forget who you are, this is what happens. You get to that upper level and you turn around and you realize everyone around you thinks you're somebody else. And so you go home and you're a different person than you're the person that comes in. That's when code switching to an extreme is bad.
Go a little deeper with that. So someone who has done code switching wrong, What does that look like?
Yeah.
And if this is you listening, please pay attention. And how do you fix it?
Yeah. To me, it gets to the point where, okay, you're now in a meeting and they're going to make a decision that is negatively going to impact the employees of color. And this could be like, I'll give you a perfect example, the vaccine mandate. People knew that there was less people that were vaccinated that were African-American and Hispanic. And so companies were deciding what to do. Do we fire people that aren't vaccinated? What should we do? You're in the room, you're the only person of color, and you're trying to fit in. And so you're around the room and you're making this decision. If you don't step up and stand up and say, hey, there are valid reasons why these populations have not got vaccinated. It's not because of lack of smarts. They're very smart people. It's because of systemic issues that happen in America that causes them not to trust the government. There's no reason for them to trust the government. It's the same government that shoots and kills them as police officers, that builds, dilapidated housing projects that aren't fixed. This is the same government now saying, I have a shot for you. So you shouldn't be surprised that there was a lower percentage of African Americans and Hispanics taking the shot. Now you're going to turn and fire them because of this distrust? Like, that doesn't make sense. Improperly code switching would have meant you kept your mouth shut in that meeting because you're trying to fit in. You don't want to make a scene. Like, Errol, why are you being so disgruntled? Errol, why are you being so, disagreeable? No. I'm going to be disagreeable because I believe in this and no one else has that perspective. I'm in the room for a reason to bring you that perspective. I have to say it. And so that's a detriment. Like that's code switching too far. When you put the need to fit in over your morals, your values, your truths. If that starts to happen, that's not good. You shouldn't lose yourself in trying to fit in.
I believe that during COVID, post-COVID, I guess, when people start going back to work and post the murder of George Floyd, many companies started doing performative DEI work,
Yep.
right? So there's a lot of hires that they probably wouldn't have hired had we not been having those social issues. What would you tell those people that currently have jobs that they probably wouldn't have had it not been for the social uprising, and still feel like they're still trying to reclaim their seat after a year and a half?
Yep. Rocket. That's what I would say. It's very likely this book got published because of the climate we're in. And so rocket 1,000%, because you still deserve the role. You still did the application. You still went through the process. Now you're in a position, if you have power to make a change, you absolutely have to make a change. The same example could be for Joe Biden and his selection for the Supreme Court justice. He's publicly said, I'm going to pick an African-American woman, right? So we have Ketanji Jackson that got selected. People could perceive it as, oh, does she really deserve it? Biden already said he was going to choose a Black woman. Look, this woman is well experienced, well educated. She deserves to be there, whether or not Biden said he was going to pick a Black person or not. So anyone who's in a space where they have a chance to make a change and they're in that position right now, maximize it, absolutely maximize it, because you're there to benefit other people. To me, in any position I'm in, I'm there to benefit my community, and you have to make the most of it, regardless of how you got there.
Got it. Chapter: Navigate and Survive Bad Bosses. Is it always a bad boss? Maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe you just don't know and understand professionally what a good boss is supposed to look like. I don't know. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So I call this out, that a boss could be racist. A boss can be, a bad word that starts with an A. Could be just really a bad guy. Regardless of the fact, if you have a bad boss, there's ways to navigate through it. And the intent of the chapter is really to break it down so that people know what to do. So on one end, some people are like, I'm going to file a lawsuit, discrimination lawsuit. And what I wanted to call out in the book was the numbers. Very unlikely that discrimination lawsuits lead to anything of justice, because if you look at the stats, I think it's like 90% of the cases never even get to court. Most of them settle, and it's a he said, she said, and all this is really tarnish who you are in the company, and you end up leaving or staying there and having a scarlet letter. So I'm like, if you're going to do that approach, just be aware of what the data says. You can do it, just understand what the process is. If you're going to stay, what are things you can do? And I talk about approaching your boss up front, having conversation, leading with assuming good intent, so that you're not coming in thinking that it's nefarious when it might not be. When you assume good intent, you also give the opportunity for the person to know how you feel. And if those things go awry, then yes, absolutely, then it's time to go. And so I actually even show examples of how to write an email. I talk about the importance of documentation, because if something is not documented, if it's not emailed, if it doesn't have any record of it, it doesn't exist. I talk about how to leverage HR, how to leverage allies through the process to double check am I seeing this the right way? Am I crazy? Are they crazy? So it's really a really great way of a process to say, what do I do when I'm in these situations? And actually have written examples of notes to send out on trying to work through it.
Speaking of crazy, seems that mental health became a big part of work culture around the same time also. So while you're talking about, okay, just follow me, doing all the things to keep the job, to excel, you want to rock it, we've seen people damn near break down mentally trying to rock it because the person that they have to rock it for is doing everything to block it. So without losing your mind, how do you rock it when somebody is constantly trying to block you from getting it and making it happen?
Yeah, I call this out too. As an example of someone I was mentoring who their whole world turned into proving their boss wrong. And they're like, I'm going to show my boss that I'm smart and I can do this. And despite them trying to block my shine, I'm going to show them wrong. And I sat her down. I was like, do you see what's happening? Like, this is someone who's not investing in your career, doesn't think the world of you, is going to continue to give you poor performance reviews. And you're banking on putting more resources to trying to turn this person's perception of you around. It's like total waste of time. There are times where you just got to pull the plug and say, I'm going to leave. And I show examples like you can, one, choose to leave internally. So try to navigate to a different department, which means you always need to be networking so that people know who you are, because you don't want to just start trying to meet new people when you're looking for a job. You should have already had those relationships already. So it's important to have those relationships so that you can find a place to land. Two, leave after you have a job in mind, which means you can go on interviews periodically just to make sure that you stay fresh. And I talk about that in the book. You should have an updated resume on your desktop at all times. And you should go on interviews just to test the market, just to see how it is. So that when you do have to really do it, it's not like you're starting from scratch. And then three, if worse comes to worse, you're leaving the company without something in mind. And then that just means you just have to have the savings. But I talk this through of, if you feel that you're impacting your mental health by trying to work for a boss that wants to see your demise, one, there's a stigma in African-American culture still on mental health. One, there's no shame in getting therapy. I have a therapist. My therapist is part of my personal board of directors. It's very important to talk through trauma and stigma, and having a bad boss is traumatic because they sort of trick you, like you're working hard, but they're telling you you're not doing well. And so you need to talk it through. And then two, don't stay in the relationship. That's an abusive relationship that you shouldn't stay in. Oh, I can't hear you.
I was just about to ask you about gaslighting in the workplace.
It happens.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So you are doing your work. You know you're doing well, yet for some strange reason, you're not getting the promotion. You're not getting the harder jobs. The jobs that do come out that aren't fun, where you have to roll up your sleeves and no one wants to do them, that's where you're getting sent to. And so in your mind, you're like, what's going on? And it's always good. That's why I talked about personal board of directors. It's always good to have your mentors and your close friends, just to have a second guess or a second look at what's happening and what's transpiring. So you can talk through what's happening and see what they say and see what their perspectives is, just to keep you honest. It can happen where you are doing everything you're supposed to do, and for some strange reason, things aren't working out. It's more reflective on your boss than it is you. Many people blame themselves, but honestly, the leadership is supposed to create an environment where you can be your best self. So if you're in an environment where you can't be your best self, that's to the fault of the leader. And that means you need to be under different leadership.
I love that. Tell me what you're going to do with this book. Are you touring? What's your goal? What are you trying to make happen here?
Yeah, I mean, the book is very vulnerable. I put myself out there. It's really life lessons for people of color to try to navigate through the world. It's also written for people that are not diverse, because if they are managing teams and they have ethnic diversity on their team, they should read this book too, so they know what their employees are going through. My hope is, I've been doing book tours in New York City. I've done some in LA, San Francisco, Boston. I'm going to do one in Miami in the next month. And I'm also been trying to get the word out online and on the news. My hope, honestly, is that we can have open dialogue about what employees of color are facing in the workplace. What I want the book to be is a license to speak up at work, right? Because if they say it, people just think it's anecdotal. Oh, that's just you. That's not everyone's story. But if they have a book that's backed by research, in the back of the book, 10 pages of cited research on these same topics that say, you're not crazy, this is what's actually happening. And I also interviewed 11 executives of color as well to find out their story. Their information is in the book as well. Then someone can say, I'm not crazy, this is actually really happening. What's my company doing about this? Let me ask the questions and really shine a light on it. So the book hopefully is a tool people can use in the workplace to sort of advance DE&I where they are.
I'm going to give you a little pushback, only because I know that this new generation, and if any of you young people are watching, don't get mad, it's true. They're kind of entitled, right? This younger generation is a little lazier than us, a little more entitled, with less experience, wanting to get paid more. I mean, I guess it's a nice way to think if it works for you in some jobs, but that don't always work. And many times they throw out the it's racist, or this is abuse, mental health. You're damaging my mental health.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to see it in real time, knowing, sir, this is not, you're lazy. I'm gonna need you
Right.
get it together. So how do you talk to your people about getting it together and making sure that when something is racist, it's actually racist? When something is, this might be you, how do you self-check? How do you make sure that these things that are going on in your head that you think are wrong really are wrong, and sometimes it's not you? Because sometimes it's them. Sometimes it's them.
Yeah, absolutely. In the book, I call this out. Like, here's a perfect example: mentorship. A young person might be like, I tried to get a mentor. I asked them to be my mentor, and they never called me. And there's this expectation, this privilege that the mentor is supposed to manage a relationship, not that they are. And so in the book, I call out this acronym TIME. I was like, to have a mentor, to be a good mentee, it takes time, TIME, and walk through the acronym. T is for trust. As a mentee, you need to build a trust with the mentor. I is intentionality. You need to set the agenda and figure out when the mentor is available and schedule time with them and make sure that there's an agenda of topics you're going to talk about and know the cadence of the meetings. Is it once a month, every 2 weeks? That's your job. M is for milestones. What are you meeting about? You're not just meeting like, tell me about your life. Like, no, I want to get a pay raise. I want to move to this role. I want to move to that role. Like, there should be milestones of what you're trying to achieve with your mentor. And that's on you as the mentee to really size that up. And then the last one, E for time, is evaluation. At some point in time, maybe 6 months, you pause and you reach back out to your mentor and say, we've been working together for a certain amount of time. I want to check in, see how it's going for you. Because the mentor relationship should be a two-way street. It shouldn't just be me getting all the insights, but you should be getting something out of it as well. And sometimes mentorships are for a reason. Sometimes they're for a season. And allowing that ability to have the evaluation period means it might end, no fault to anybody. It might continue and get stronger. And so to your point, yes, millennials that are like, I asked, I sent out a LinkedIn message to the CEO to be my mentor and no one responded. Like, no. Like, there's more intentionality you have to have. It's incumbent on you to manage a relationship. You have to do the hard work. And I also talk about in the book, it might take 10 no's to get to your first yes. So don't give up after your first no. Like,
Yeah.
if you ask once, you got 9 more before you even expect your first yes. And these are sort of the things I try to help with. Because, sometimes, like you said, they just assume they're going to get it easily.
Like who told y'all that? Where are they teaching that at? I'm not sure, but we're gonna have to do a little correction with this younger
Absolutely.
generation about hustle and grind and yes, intentionality and all that good stuff that sometimes I think they're missing. But all that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us about this. I was super excited about this book, y'all. I was super excited. I hope you can see it. And I hope you have a chance to get it. So let the people know how they can stay in touch with you if they want you to come speak or want to work with you. Like,
Sure.
give them all the good stuff. How can they
Yes.
cyber stalk you and all that good stuff?
So best way to find me is on my website, www.errolpierre.com, ERROLPIERRE.com, errolpierre.com. And I'm on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Errol L Pierre. So just search at Errol L Pierre on all social media, and I'm there too. I'd love to hear from you, love to speak with you, and hope you find the book interesting and helpful.
Well, thank you again for taking the time. Please stay connected. If you have something going on and you want us to share it with the audience, let us know, because once you are part of the Leaders and Learners family, you're always a part.
Awesome.
And we look forward to whatever's next. Don't you come back to LA again and not let us know so that we can show up to support. That's what we do.
I may be having something in LA in April.
Okay.
With a special guest. So more to come on that. It'll be very
Please make sure you stay in touch. Let us know so we can let the people know.
Absolutely.
We definitely want to come out and support that. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
I love the book. I'm gifting it to some folks that need it. And I just recommend that whether you are an executive or you're just starting out, take some time, read through it. There's definitely something that will help just about everybody in corporate America move to the next level. Again, even if you're in leadership, it'll help you out. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What you think about today's episode, and share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.